Hey there, Cheeky Monkey viewers. Today we're going to do a little tutorial video on how to edit videos and publish them for IGTV. And I've got Final Cut Pro and Premiere Pro ready to go in case you're using a Mac or a PC. Of course, I'm using a MacBook Pro for this. I'm going to start with Final Cut Pro, but skip ahead in the video just a little bit and we'll get into Premiere Pro in just a bit. So, say you've shot some footage and you're ready to start editing your video for IGTV. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into Final Cut Pro here. I've already imported my footage, as you can see here, and I'm going to start a new project. We're going to name this IGTV test. So you want to go to the video format. It's in 1080p HD. We still want to do that, but we have to go down to custom right here. And we have to change it from 1920 by 1080 to the inverse of that, which is, of course, 1080 by 1920. You can choose your frame rate based on what you're shooting. This video that I was shooting was in 24 frames per second, so I'm going to choose 23.98 as that's my preferred rate. Now we have 3 footage items that I've just pulled from our random media bin, and I'll show you what we have to do with these. I'm going to click and drag them onto our timeline. Now you'll notice that when they exist on the timeline, they do not fill the entire screen space. So we just have to do a few adjustments. So go ahead and select all these clips and open up your inspector here. So you're going to want to go to scale. Now in scale, you want to actually scale this up to a 180%, and then you go to rotation and you enter in 90 degrees. Now this also depends on how you had the camera oriented, whether you turned it to the left sideways or turned it to the right sideways. So depending on which, you may need to enter in 90 or -90 for rotation. But now you'll see we have the clips very nicely filling the entire frame. So we have a nice little 13-second clip here. So now what? Well, this is where we get into the export settings. You're going to want to go to File and Share in Final Cut Pro, and you'll want to select Apple Devices 1080p. This is a default export setting that's built into Final Cut Pro. You go over to Settings here, and there's a couple different options. Now, IGTV does have size limits up to 3.6 gigabytes at the moment. However, you generally want to err on the lighter side when uploading videos because if they're too large, sometimes they can get compressed. Most of the time, this won't be an issue unless you're uploading videos that are super long. So you just have to worry about keeping that file size the most efficient that you can. I like to choose for the video codec the H.264 better quality. This means that it will do an extra pass when it's exporting your video. It will take a little longer to export, but it's usually worth it. Now in terms of resolution, you want to choose 1080 by 1920, of course, because that is the resolution that we'll be uploading to IGTV with. And lastly, format is the one where you kind of have some flexibility in file size. So if we choose computer, you'll see that the file size increases by about double. It was, with the Apple Devices selection, 16.3 megabytes before, and now it is 33.1 megabytes. So it is a larger video file. It means it has more information, possibly means it looks better. And the third option is web hosting, which is just a bit smaller than the computer selection. Because I'm erring on the side of going for a lighter codec, I'm going to choose Apple Devices because I've found that this has worked pretty well for uploading to IGTV. And that's it. You hit next, you can select your export location and let it run, and there's your video. So for you PC users out there, you're probably wondering, well, come on, Spencer, we don't have Final Cut Pro on our computers. Well, I'm going to show you how to do the same thing in Premiere Pro. So let's get started. I've got the same 3 clips right here. So we're going to start with going to File and New Sequence. And this is a very similar process, a little bit more to deal with here, so bear with me. I'm going to choose DSLR 1080p 24 frames as a preset, and it'll create the sequence. I have to go to the sequence settings and actually change the frame size just like we did in Final Cut Pro to be 1080 by 1920. Right there. Everything else stays the same. We hit OK, and we get the same frame size as we did when we were working in Final Cut Pro. So now I'm going to drag these clips to our timeline. Now again, you'll see that they don't fill the frame and they're not in the right orientation, just like in Final Cut Pro. So we have to do some adjustments. In Premiere Pro, you actually have to select them individually to do this, so it's a little bit more labor intensive. We're going to go to rotation and hit 90, and we will see that this clip now fills the frame. However, we've discovered that it's upside down. So instead, we're going to go -90. And this will give us the clip upright. Now I have to do the same thing for each of these other clips. So now you can see we've got these clips laid out on our timeline. They're all upright, they're looking good. So now it's time to export and upload them to IGTV. To export from Premiere Pro, we're going to go to File and Export and Media. Now we have a lot more flexibility when exporting in Premiere Pro. You do pay for this in extra export time. So as we go down to our settings here, if you just hit Match Source, it will match all the settings of the source clips that you're using, which is very convenient. So you want to scroll down and make sure you have this box, Render and Maximum Depth, checked, as this will improve the quality of your video without adding too much size. You will also want to make sure that you're changing your bitrate encoding. Now this is important. We're going to change it to constant bitrate, which is CBR. This has a direct effect on how big the file is. You'll notice that by default, the estimated file size is 47 megabytes. It's a lot bigger than the one we exported from Final Cut Pro. But we can adjust this by changing the target bitrate. So we're going to drag this down, and I like to usually keep it at around 6 megabits per second. And that gets the file to around 29 megabytes, which is approximately where we had it before. Now, your mileage may vary, but you know that you can use the bitrate to control the file size in case your files are too big to upload to IGTV. Now, lastly, you want to make sure that Use Maximum Render Quality is also checked, and you'll just select an output name. We're going to name this IGTV Test and export it in the same location and hit Save, and we'll just hit Export and wait for it to go. Now that our video files have exported from both Final Cut Pro and Premiere Pro, there's one more step. So we have to go to find our file that was exported from Final Cut. Now, unfortunately, when you export from Final Cut using the Apple Devices preset, the tag or the label for the video file is an M4V instead of an MP4. IGTV requires an MP4 video format. So we're going to just, if you have a Mac, select this and rename the file. You'll want to go over all the way and backspace this and enter in MP4. This is a very convenient way just to quickly change the video format so that you can upload it to the internet. Once we hit that, we'll say Use MP4. We're going to head over to our Instagram page and our IGTV section. Hit the upload button. We can drag and drop a video file. We're going to choose IGTV Test. It'll begin uploading, and here you have the chance to enter in your own title, IGTV Test Video, description. This is a description of this video. Now, of course, you can choose your own thumbnail, which will be 1080 by 1920 in resolution. I recommend taking a frame from your video, adding some text, doing some creative stuff, or perhaps even using a photograph that you've taken for your thumbnail, just to make it look extra good. And voila, your video is ready to be published on IGTV. Now, I hope you found this tutorial useful. If you have any questions, feel free to send us a message on YouTube or send us a DM through Instagram. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.